In this video, you'll see a tutorial on how to create pipes that follow along with the grade of a surface. This is useful for modeling water pipes and other utilities. The concept behind all the tools I'm going to show you today revolve around feature lines and converting this alignment that I have here and the elevations from the profile into a feature line that I can then modify and further create into a pipe network. That means I'm going to begin by creating a feature line from my alignment. I want to make sure that I don't create a dynamic link to the alignment because I'm going to be modifying my feature line after the fact. So now when I click OK, I have a feature line here, and you'll see many blue grips on this. All of these blue grips represent elevation points that were created from the profile when it created from surface. Now, to make things a little bit easier, I'm going to modify this feature line, and I want to be able to see that in profile. So I'm going to project the feature line onto my profile. And here I can see the exact same thing that I just showed you in plan. All those blue grips are now represented by these circle lines on my profile view. And notice that it follows along very closely with the existing ground profile. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue and weed the feature line. The reason that we have to weed the vertices from the feature line is if you try to create a pipe network with all these vertices, each one of these vertices will become a null structure. And you'll get this message from AutoCAD that tells you that converting polylines with this many vertices, more than 75, might exceed my system resources. So I want to make sure that I don't do this and try to get this number of vertices down to a reasonable number. The hardest thing though about using the weed command is getting it to a set value without overdoing it so that you lose information or accuracy from what the existing ground surface does. So to make sure that we don't do that, we're going to incrementally increase our weeding values as we go along. The first time that we weed, we're not going to weed with a length or a 3D distance. All we're going to weed with is the angle and grade. The angle is important because if I don't have the angle, I'll end up getting rid of the horizontal geometry. Keeping the angle this small maintains the fact that I probably won't get rid of the horizontal geometry. If you're concerned, you can make the angle even smaller, but it really shouldn't change anything for us. Now the grade is really how we're going to be getting rid of our three-dimensional redundant points. I'm going to start with a grade of 3%. And notice that this gets rid of many of the vertices, 534 out of 655. So we're already closer to that number that it wants, 75 vertices. And when I click OK, because of this feature line projected onto the profile, I can see pretty quickly how close I am to the original, but notice that there are much less vertices than there previously were. Many less. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to weed it a little bit more and increase the numbers. So I'm going to weed the feature line again, but this time I am going to use a length. And the reason is so that I keep my vertices at a reasonable interval. So right now there has to be at least 40 feet between two vertices or it won't remove the point in the middle. For the grade, I'm going to increase this to 5%, but I still don't want to use a 3D distance yet. And now notice that 24 vertices will be removed. So not much really looks like it's changed. The profile still seems to be fairly close to the feature line. Maybe I can get away with a little bit more. I have quite a lot of vertices here that might not be required. So I'm going to weed one more time. This time I'm going to increase the length just to maintain a set number of vertices still. I'll increase the grade to 8%. And this time I will use a 3D distance so that it will remove those clumps of vertices. Before, when I had many vertices, this might have done too much damage by removing too much. Now that I don't have as much, it's safer to use the close point removal. So now I should be within that 75 number. And to check, if I go back to the weed vertices command, I can see that I have 73 vertices left. Now that we've weeded all the vertices, we can continue by dropping the feature line down to the centerline pipe elevation and then converting that into a pipe network. I'm going to use the raise lower command for my feature line, and I'm going to drop it down 5 feet. Notice in the profile now that my feature line is below the existing elevation of the surface. The next step then is to convert my feature line into a pipe network. And this time I didn't get the warning that I had too many vertices. It's now a little bit more pleased that I've reduced the number. I'm going to need to create my pipe network just like I do when I create a pipe network by layout. This parts list that I'm using doesn't have any rules set, but it doesn't matter that much. The most important thing is that I use the vertex elevations from my feature line to create the pipe network. So make sure that this box at the bottom is selected. So I can now see in plan that I have a feature line still, since I didn't erase it, and I have a double line representing the pipe network. The last thing to do to actually check to make sure that it created something that I find acceptable is to draw the parts in the profile view. And I can now see my pipe network that follows along with my feature line. And I can view this pipe network in the object viewer. And I can see that it truly is a three-dimensional pipe network.